With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
All right, this is the Hardcore Grind interview with transformational speaker Deshaun Booker. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you today, Lissha. I appreciate all of this. I'm excited.
I appreciate you because you do so much just for people. You pour into them on a regular basis. So I know that this is going to be not only inspirational, but you're going to be maximizing everybody. You're going to give them some jewels. So I think y'all might want to have pen and paper ready because you're going to get some good stuff today.
Thank you. Absolutely.
So I do like to always talk about a goal moment. And we talked a little bit about that, but a goal moment is really when thought and execution come together. We're really mindful about other people, how they're doing, how they're feeling. But when we deal with ourselves, it's either in lack or fear sometimes. And we don't tend to move our feet right away when things are placed in our spirit that could fulfill us. So I just want to ask a little bit about your goal moment.
Wow, that's good. And so if I'm talking about my go moment, is that when did I feel like empowering women and becoming a coach and a writer was the thing I was supposed to do?
Yes, ma'am. Well, when did you decide to do it? So you always start out, you're doing something and you start thinking about your purpose, but then you don't make that move right away. When did you decide to say, okay, I'm about to just do this? I think that this is what I need to be doing.
Now, it was actually in, I think, it goes back even before what I was getting ready to say. So I began speaking to women because people would just literally invite me, right? Invite me to come and speak. Deshaun, there's something about you that when you're talking, just, in small gatherings or just, the way that you carry yourself, you always really have some great insight. And so people started to invite me in the early 2000s or even in the late 90s, early 2000s, they started to invite me to, do workshops for women, empowerment workshops for young girls. I was invited to speak, at different places, and I always wanted to speak. Even as a young girl, I knew that I wanted to talk and to share, whatever insight. And I always knew that I wanted to help other people see their light, see who they were, and reach their highest potential. And so I started doing some workshops with the youth. And so I created a nonprofit in 93. And when I created the nonprofit, my goal was truly to work with the young people in our communities to break down the bridges between our, our cultures and our different ethnic groups within our communities. And so I wanted to build bridges between, the people of color, and so I did that. And as that began to flourish, I found that I had a liking and a calling to work with women. And I still did it just here and there, but really the goal for me happened, I'll say, in 2014. I went to a conference, and it was at that conference that I knew, like everybody else who was there knew too, but I knew that there was something bigger inside of me that was waiting to come out in such a way that I could see it, I could feel it. And after the conference, I went home, went to sleep, and honest to goodness, I was awakened at 3:20 in the morning. I'll never forget it. And I was awakened at 3:20 in the morning, and God said, get up, go to the computer. I went to the computer, and God gave me the name and title of the company, Maximizing Your Magnificence. And I didn't know I was literally asleep. This was in 2014. I went to the conference. I went to Lissha Nichols, who's world-renowned known speaker, transformational writer, author, speaker, and I know her personally. And I knew her before she became Lissha Nichols today. We worked together years ago in social services. And so when I went to the conference, I knew, okay, I'm coming here to gather this information so that I can see what's happening. Well, when I left, when I left the mountaintop, God said, wake up, go to the computer, and I began to write and type Maximizing Your Magnificence. And God said, this is your speaking, coaching, and facilitating company. And it was in that moment where I said, oh, now I have some structure around it. And so that was my goal, to now go and serve the women. But it didn't really develop until I started focusing on my niche. What's my niche? Who am I in all of this? Because I didn't want to just be what other women were doing. There's so many speakers, right? So many coaches and people coaching all different platforms, life coaching, business, health and wellness, And so I had to really stop, even though I knew that was my goal, when God woke me up and said, this is what this is. I had to really then say, but what is it that I am offering? What is the solution that I'm offering? And I looked at my own self, what is it that you, Deshawn, have learned from? And I really learned how to be resilient. How do I bounce back? After all of the things that I've gone through in my life, right? What did I bounce back from and how did I do it? And so once that became really clear for me, it was the launching pad that I want to continue to empower women as I was doing, but I want to do it from a place of how do you become resilient in a world that we're living in? And how are you resilient? How do you maximize your magnificence, yet when you're having breakdowns and you're not sure what to do? Because a lot of women get stuck. And so when I began to say that, women began to come to me. They found me and wanted me to coach them, either professionally in their lives or personally, and I became known as the maximizing coach. But it wasn't until God woke me up and said, this is what this is called, maximizing your magnificence. All of the work that I was doing and wanting people to really shine their light, it now became very clear to me. And the goal got even stronger, Lissha, when I lost my mother the following year, not knowing that was going to happen. I lost my mother in 2015. I remember my mother, we were on the porch outside in the front of the house, and my mom said, we weren't even talking about anything that had to relate to women and what I do. My mom said to me, Deshawn, how do you know when a woman is unhappy, is not feeling like she needs to be where she wants to be? How do you know that? And I knew my mother was talking about herself. My mom was a retired teacher. She had taught in the school district here in California, in L.A., for over 35 years. So she was doing great, had done great for herself, very successful. And my mother asked, how do you know when a woman is unhappy? It's not sad. It's sad. It's not happy. And I knew that my mom was going through something. I don't have any, I don't know what it was. I could just tell that sometimes she was, happier on certain days and not certain days she just was not. I could see that, we spoke, we were close. And so when she asked me that, I knew she was talking about her. And before I could get too excited, because I didn't want to, push her away, right? I just said, oh, well, Mom, I just, asked them some questions, and they just really opened up to me. I didn't want to really go, Mom, are you talking about you? And then later on that year, right, I didn't want to do that, but I did not want to push her away. And if I would have known that some months later she would no longer be here with us, I would have asked her that. And so my goal got stronger because I knew then that I had to not let another woman who was hurting leave this earth without knowing she had a chance to find peace and fulfillment. And I believe that my mom wanted to, I believe my mom wanted to step into her next act of her life. And she was happy. She was fulfilled. But there was something missing, right? That void. And because that question came from somewhere. And I vowed that that would now be my mantle, my new goal, my bigger goal, once my mother passed, that I would help whatever woman, so that she doesn't have to take another breath, another step in her grief and feeling depleted. And that was my goal.
I love it. I love it because a lot of times, especially women mothers, we're taught early on that self-love is selfish, and making sure that you give to yourself and pour into yourself. Those are selfish things that you always have to be giving. You always have to be of service, and we tend to be empty. We don't have anybody to fill us up, and we don't know how to fill ourselves up. So I love that you took that moment and you turned it around and said, okay, no, because there's so many women that are like this, so many mothers, grandmothers that need to be loved on. I love it.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. You're absolutely right. So many of us. When I am coaching women, it's the same theme, right? The same through line is, Deshawn, how do I get unstuck? I feel stuck. I'm stuck in not being able to declutter my house, declutter my mind, declutter my heart. I'm stuck in the past. I'm stuck in, my marriage. I'm stuck in my job. I'm stuck in I'm stuck in fear, and they just feel stuck. And that's the same thing that I keep hearing. And so that's where I say, okay, well, there's something that has put you in that place of being stuck. What was the situation? Let's define that. Let's go back to the origin. And so I'm always going back to, okay, let's go back to that place. And a lot of us don't want to do that either because it hurts. And but we got to do the work, right? We got to do the work. And so I'm asking them, when is the moment where you felt that your heart was broken? And it may be several, but let's go back to that first place. It may be in your childhood, your adolescence, your first relationship, but that is where you began to get stuck and you took that way of thinking and being and believing into your adult life. And so by the time we become adults, we're saying, how do I get unstuck? I have this narrative that I'm telling myself I'm not enough, I'm not worthy enough, I'm never going to be able to do it, or, there's fear of failing or fear of success. And so the women get stuck. And that is such a main, theme amongst all women, that they are feeling stuck. And I knew that my mom was stuck. Although she was successful, had served and given her life, in the realms of teaching for over 35 years. She has myself and my two brothers. She had grandchildren, beautiful, my father. But all of that, something, Lissha, wasn't sticking. It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. Yeah. So you're right. We give and give, but then we're not being given, or deposited into. And we've been taught, hey, don't say anything because you're supposed to be strong. Where's that red cape? Put on that red cape.
Absolutely. I love it. Now, you're doing a one-woman show. Tell us how that came about.
Ooh, okay. Well, again, I knew years ago that I wanted to do a one-woman show. I'm talking like in the 90s. I really did know that. My background is in acting, writing, directing, and so I knew just in my head space, I'm going to do a one-woman show. Well, and I knew that, as the years, went by and, all of those things were looking like, okay, I can do this. Well, this happened like right now, God said, I want you to do your one-woman show now. So what I was doing, I was actually creating a program for my coaching program. And I was going to create a master class, a free master class. You know, as a coach, we're always creating new programs, right? And, you know, we're always launching, you know, something bigger and greater so that we can serve our, you know, clientele, our community. And so I was creating a master class. And again, my theme this year is how do you reignite who you are? How do you reignite, going back to that same theme of resiliency? So I was creating that. And I was creating it, like the name was, you know, Reignite Your Fire, F-I-Y-A-H. And fire means flowing in your anointing higher. How do you flow in your anointing higher? And so as I'm creating this program, God said to me, this is not a program. This is bigger than that. This is your one-woman show. And so last year I had 6 surgeries. I had some life-threatening situations. They thought I had cancer. And in addition to that, I was dealing with fibroids. I've been dealing with fibroids all my life. And as we were going through, the doctors and surgeons and specialists and I were going through how to deal with these fibroids last year, I'd already had 2 major surgeries, one in 98 and one in 2007. And my fibroids were, honey, listen, they were out of control, okay? I know that I was a poster child for fibroids because mine was just ridiculous. And so when we were dealing with the fibroids last year, and then I got hit with this result that I could have breast cancer, now I'm dealing with both of those things at the same time. But God brought me through. And so when he said to me, this is your one-woman show, you've gone through, give the testimony now. It's time to tell the testimony of how you came through, you know, with the fibroids, not having breast cancer, and you thought you weren't going to be here. Now it's time to tell this story. And so that's what happened. I said, so you mean to tell me, God, that I'm my first client? I am my own client. I'm here telling women how to reignite their fire, but it's really me talking about how am I reigniting my own fire. So my own story really came out of 6 surgeries where I'm in the hospital. You know, I'm thinking I'm going to have, you know, I have this breast cancer, possibly, right? I'm just not understanding what's going to happen because in the past I was never a candidate for certain surgeries concerning the fibroids. And now I have these team of doctors who are saying, we want to try something else with you. We want to try to give you the uterine fibroid embolization. We know you said you were never a candidate, but Deshaun, you cannot continue to have your life like this. This isn't a quality of life. These doctors came to me and said that to me. God was bringing me angels through the doctors and the nurses and the surgeons and the specialists. And at that moment, I knew that God was involved in my journey. And so he said, this is not a free master class. This is your one-woman show. I lost my sister to lupus in 1993. I lost my mother. I lost my grandmother. I lost several friends to cancer. I had an aunt who was shot and murdered in her own home. I've had other cousins who died unexpectedly, lost my job, right? Didn't have the money to make ends meet, didn't know what was going to happen, even though I had a degree. God said, it's time for you to stop holding back, and it's time for you to be transparent. It's time for you to tell your story, your testimony, Deshaun. It's time for you to share the mess that is now your message. It's time for you to show who you are and stop hiding. The mantle that I knew I was carrying for women, I was also, Lissha, carrying for myself. Yeah.
Talk that talk.
Yeah. Talk that talk, right? And so when God said it's time, listen, I said, I don't even have a script. He said, you can write it. You know how to do that. You've helped other women write their one-woman shows. You know how to do that. So I am literally still writing it as we speak. It opens the end of this month, Friday, March 31st, which happens to be my sister who died of lupus. It happens to be her birthday, so I'm dedicating this show to her. And that is how it came about. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And you inspire and heal so many through the different panels and workshops that you do. How have you grown in your craft over the years?
Oh, I love that question. You know, I really, when I think about that, and I've really grown in being transparent with myself. And let me just dive a little deeper and just say what that means. I love that. I love how have I grown, right? I've grown because I had to take some look at me and look within myself and say, now, are you really serving from your authentic, pure self, or are you serving from a place of theory, Deshawn? Theory. Are you just sort of like, you know, if you're just like hovering over something, but you don't go and get in it, you're not really there. I believe I was hovering all these years, and I've been coaching for over 20 years, even before I founded, you know, the business. I was still coaching women and speaking and doing workshops and facilitating, you know, different events to empower women. I've done women in shelters. I've had contracts to do all those things. And so I knew how to inspire and motivate, but the growing came when I said, there's something missing. You want to transform the lives of these women, Deshawn. You want women to be able to take what you're giving them and transform their lives when you're not around. You don't want to just motivate and inspire because that's emotionalism, right? They're just emotionally, you know, hyped up. I felt like there was something a little deeper, and that's when I said you need to be more transparent with your own self. Why are you serving? Why are you really wanting the women to reach their highest potential? Because I believe and I know for sure that that's who we are. And so I started to grow and learn more about who was I and really what I wanted to inspire and see these women take up themselves to transfer this information into a reality. So I really grew first with getting my own self out the way because I was afraid. I was afraid that if I didn't say certain things when I'm coaching, then the women would get upset or they would be mad or they would leave or they wouldn't think they were really getting anywhere. And so I was coaching, Lissha, but from a place that didn't want to step on any toes. So I had to grow and learn that, Deshawn, it's not about stepping on toes. It's about being transparent with yourself so they can be transparent with you. And that was the biggest lesson. That was a huge lesson. So that it's not about you upsetting them. It's about you being there so they can see who they are. And sometimes that work is ugly, and I was still going, I don't want them to be upset with me, or I don't want a woman to think I'm trying to pry, but I got to dig up the roots. So if I share a little bit about myself, if I share a little bit about who I am, if I share with that client who she really is holistically, then we can deal with her mental, spiritual, physical, holistically. And that was the greatest lesson that I learned about myself. And so, see, this is now why God tells me you were your own client as well, Deshawn. And now it's time for you to share that story. Sometimes coaches, they sit above, the coaching. But no, I had to get in it so that I can really talk about my experiences. Then that is the gateway to allowing women to relate to me, and I relate to them. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Now, so many don't even know how to start. So if you had to give 5 pointers or 5 tips on reigniting your fire, what would they be?
Oh, good question. The first thing when we're talking about reigniting your fire is really understanding what has, number one, what has been the narrative that you've been living in? What's been the narrative? Because you can't reignite if you're reigniting from an old narrative that doesn't even serve you. If you're still saying, I'm not going to be anything, I'm not good at anything, I'm not worthy of this, I can't do it, who wants to hear from me? You know, it's too late, I'm too old, I'm too young, I don't look right, I don't make enough money. If you're still coming from a place where your narrative doesn't support you, then you can't even reignite your fire. So the first thing is you have to say, what narrative am I living in? Does it support me? Is it saying, affirmative things about me? Am I believing in who I am, that I can even take this step, that I can do this? So first and foremost, look at what narrative are you living in. Are you supporting yourself with high energy, high vibes, right? Are you affirming who you are and believing it? So you got to first look at the narrative. You cannot reignite anything if your narrative, honey, is all in the garbage. So once you say, okay, I'm leaving that narrative behind that didn't and doesn't serve me, and my new narrative is I am greater than my defeats. I am ready to go and now conquer what it is I am called to do. My narrative is now I am living on purpose and in purpose. And so once you believe that, then that narrative has changed. The next thing you want to begin to do is you really want to look at how committed are you? How committed are you? So once you identify your narrative, how committed are you to this new pathway? Are you committed 100% or 7%? That matters. It matters. It matters if you're going to reignite the fire. You've got that fire. You've got to definitely say, am I committed to this journey? Am I committed? And once you say, yes, I'm committed at 70% or 80%, just work with where you are. But how committed are you? So once you talk about the narrative, great, check off. Then you want to look at, what's your commitment? The next C that I like to talk about is your confidence. Are you even confident in yourself that you can do it? Are you really ready to say, I have the confidence to reignite? Because if you don't, forget about it. Right? You have to have the confidence in yourself, meaning you have to say, I'm going to take courageous action. I'm going to step out of the box. I'm going to blow my own mind. So you're confident. How does that look for you? Then you want to look at your consistency. I call these my 4 C's. And then you want to look at your consistency. How committed are you to your consistency? Because we'll start something. Oh, I want to reignite my fire. I want this. I see, I'm looking at everyone on social media, and I'm impressed, and I want that. And we'll start, reigniting. And then life happens, and then we stop. Because, see, life is going to throw you, right, the distractions. It's going to throw you the curveballs. So if you're not consistent and still building and growing and going, and you stop because it didn't turn out the way you expected, right? Or you had a breakdown. You're not feeling yourself. You're feeling upset, hurt. Life has happened to you, and you're saying forget about it. You don't have the resources. You don't know what to do. So you just say, I'm done. And then there's no consistency. There's no follow-through. You cannot reignite if you're not consistent. That last C is creativity. If we are going to reignite our fire, right, if we're going to flow in our anointing higher, we have to be creative. We have to think not just outside the box, but we have to crush it. You have to be creative with your resources, with your networking, with what new, groups you want to be affiliated with, right? You don't want to just stay in your comfort zone. You want to say, okay, you know what? I am going to be creative. I've never done, Instagram lives or Facebook lives, or I've never done, videos, where I'm doing a promotion about what I do or who I am. I've never done, whatever you haven't done, try it. Be creative. If you haven't done a blog and you want to do a blog, if you haven't done YouTube, try YouTube. If you haven't done any writing, try your writing. If you haven't collaborated with a person and you really want to do that, do that. Think outside the box. Be creative if you're going to reignite your fire. So after you've identified a healthy narrative, you want to look at the 4 C's. You want to look at how committed are you. You want to be consistent. You want to make sure that you're confident and that you have the creativity. And then if you're going to reignite your fire, you want to be willing to always bounce back because stuff is going to happen, okay?
Okay.
All right. Life is life, honey. Someone told me life is lifing. And so you have to be willing to always bounce back. Now, that's something I learned from myself. And I knew that I wasn't willing a lot of times. And I had to ask myself, are you willing to go all the way to get your goal? And if I said no, then I knew that I wasn't ready. I wasn't reigniting. It wasn't until I said, I'm really willing to bounce back. I don't want to sit in doubt, in fear. I don't want to be deprived. I don't want to live in despair. So when I said yes to my willingness to bounce back, then I saw myself differently, and I was ready to reignite my fire.
I love it. Now, you also, on top of maximizing your magnificence, you also have another nonprofit, Oasis Ministry Productions. Tell us a little bit about that.
Thank you. Yes. So Oasis Ministry Productions is my theatrical production company, which I actually founded also in 93 and didn't know that was going to happen. I went to college. I went to Howard University, and I studied in theater education. But before that, I've gone to acting schools and dance schools. So I love the arts. I love theater, and I love acting and creating. And when I came back home from graduating from Howard, I had done some directing while I was in college, and I knew that I loved directing. And when my sister passed, before my sister passed, I asked my sister, could I write a story about her and having the lupus? And, of course, in the story, in the play, she would be healed and be okay. And so she said, sure, that would be great. So I wrote this musical. I was writing a musical. And then my sister passed. It was in that moment where I began to say, I want to create just more than just a play. I want to continue to tell stories of how do we overcome our trials, how do we overcome our obstacles. And so Oasis Ministry Productions, because Oasis, as we know, is when we see the water, right, in the middle of the desert, is when we see that there is something, that has just appeared in the middle of the chaos. And so the production company focuses on how can we see our victory when we're feeling like the victim? How can we begin to, how can we overcome in the face of adversity? So all of the plays and musicals that I write have to do with that theme, seeing our victories instead of seeing ourselves as victims. And I had to do that after my sister passed away because I was writing that musical and she was going to live. And the musical was called Oasis, which was a very popular song, gospel song, during that time by Helen Baylor. And so my sister said that was her favorite gospel song. So I entitled the play about my sister, Oasis. And then the production company grew from that, Oasis Ministry Productions, because, again, I just had a longing and a desire to show people how can we overcome all the stuff we go through in life. How can we really, and I want to show that through stories that were life-changing and stories that were relatable to us, to the everyday person. And so that's Oasis Ministry Productions.
I love it. Now, what advice do you have for aspiring playwrights, those that have that thought of either not even just a play, they might have a script in mind, they might have a movie. What are your what advice would you give those aspiring to put their writing in front of the masses?
That's a really powerful question. I love that question, Lissha. And I even think about myself, like, what would I tell myself back then, right? And so the biggest piece of nugget that I like to offer in this interview today in terms of those who are wanting to write is this. This is what I told myself. Follow what's in your heart. Follow what you believe you are standing strong for. What are you standing for? What is it in your heart that you say, I want to talk about this? This is my message. This is where I want to design the writing to turn into a visual performance. So I would offer any of those, people, young, the older, no matter who you are, where you are, write about what's in your heart. Write about the stories that are in your heart. Trust what's in your heart. Do not talk yourself out of it. Don't edit it. Don't even compare yourself with so-and-so's writing this or so-and-so. We do that a lot, right? I am strongly encouraging that person to write what is in their heart. Because when you're writing from a place of what's in your heart, you're going to always have fun. You're going to always be able to say, I enjoy what I'm writing. I'm enjoying what I'm saying. It's fun. It's truly maximizing their magnificence. So I really encourage people to say to themselves, what is my message? What is it that I want to say? And then why do I want to say it? And there's so many stories that can come from that. You're not going to ever find yourself not having another story in you, because that story, that message can show up in so many different ways as a story. So always ask yourself, what is it that I want to say? What is it that I'm passionate about? What is it that is my wow factor? What gives me life? What gives me oxygen? That's what I offer. What is it that your message is? Because if you identify your writing message as your passion, you're never going to be empty. You're always going to be able to write from your overflow, honey, from your overflow. I believe that. That's what I believe.
I love it. Now, with all the things you've accomplished, what's next?
I want to take this one-woman show and tour it nationally, and the one-woman show, Reignite Your Fire, a Black girl's spiritual journey to rebirth. I want to create a campaign around that. I want it to be my products in the form of programs, coaching programs. I want to write a book. I want to do a devotional book around it. I want to continue to tour it and connect it to workshops for women. I want to connect it to my coaching programs. I want to connect it to my platform for teaching and speaking from that. So I want it to become a signature speaking topic for me. So I really want the Reignite Your Fire to really become a national campaign. That's next. Yeah.
I love it. Well, I'm excited for you, because you've been reigniting my fire, and we only been talking for less than about an hour now, and I'm excited about everything because you have a gift, honey. God has placed some anointing on you, and I'm so glad that you were able to share your time, space, and your energy with me. If people want to connect with you, where can they connect with you?
They can definitely go to my website, which is DeshawnBooker.com, and you can leave me an email there, right? I'll get right to you. That's where they can also go to get their tickets for the stage reading of Reignite Your Fire, a Black girl spiritual journey to rebirth. They can go there to my website. And when you go to the website, DeshawnBooker.com, just hit the link events. They can get their tickets there. They can also contact me at my email, which is maximizemagnificence@gmail.com or info@DeshawnBooker.com. So you can reach me both ways. You can also reach me out at my phone number, 310-291-8519. And I'm on all social media platforms. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter @DeshawnBooker.
I love it. And again, we appreciate you taking your time, space, and energy to come and hang out with us on today.
Oh, thank you.
And we can't wait to have you again.
Oh, thank you. It is